Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Area for research and companies, big companies, to set up shops and so on, and much better than the Silicon Valley. I visited Silicon Valley just a couple of months ago. The settings are almost the same, but I think the living standard, I think here is more comfortable, and yeah, housing and so on, so it's a nice environment. I've asked that gentleman to turn off the lights here, and I think he may still be trying, yes, or forgotten. Pardon? Pardon?
It is more sunny in the Bay.
Yeah, well, that's true, yes. Warmer, yes. That's true, and less rain, yeah. But things are so expensive, and yeah, and there's still the fault of the earthquake. You never know. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Well, you have the. Yeah, you have the mountain ashes and so on. Yeah. Wow. So today we are talking about reducing errors in computer recognition of handwritten material, and of course it's very important in many applications, especially when we talk about finance and ID codes, numbers, and so on, which is very important. And so for many years we've been working on this and trying to reduce the errors. And I think we have reached a certain point that we think it is possible that we may be on the path to an error-free society. So first of all, I will introduce a little bit about CENPARMI, the Center for Pattern Recognition and Machine Intelligence at Concordia University. And then I'll talk about what we have done related to handwriting recognition. And then we will focus on error analysis and the techniques of doing that. So CENPARMI actually is a center for a lot of research in handwriting recognition and document analysis. And we have a group of people in Montreal working in related area. And so we have, as you can see, we have Dr. Banjo from University of Montreal, and Dr. Bergler in natural language processing. Jean-Gilles is in signature verification. Dr. Bui in our department is in wavelets and analysis and image processing. Dr. Chariot is in document analysis and also image processing. Dr. Kasvan in image processing. Dr. Krizak on learning. And Dr. Lam is on syntactic analysis. And Dr. Lee is on mathematical models, 3D and 2D in image processing. And Dr. Plamondon, Dr. K. Liu is now in the States, and Dr. Plamondon is in the signature verification area of École Polytechnique de Montréal. And we have Dr. Radhakrishnan on agents, and Dr. Sapourin also on recognition. We have a few staff working on data analysis and language processing. Dr. Siu is on date recognition, as well as on multi-layer perceptron analysis. We have a few visitors, and by the name you, of course, realize we had many visitors from Korea. Dr. Kim, In-jo Kim, and Dr. Kyung-min Kim. And at one point, we had 3 Dr. Kims in our center. And so we have visitors from many different countries. Many of them come from Asia, and some of them from Italy, France, and a few from the States and England. And we have a few from Japan and from the industries as well, from Nippon Electric and other companies. Well, that is our reading room where we have all the pattern recognition journals and very standard. And so we have image processing and also AI and knowledge data processing, etc. And we have an excellent library in this area, I think. And we have all the conference proceedings of the International Conference on Pattern Recognition, International Conference on Document Analysis and Recognition, International Workshop on Handwriting Recognition. And so we've been very active and collecting these conference proceedings as well as journals, and we also have a lot of theses by students and a lot of other papers, publications by our students. That's just another part of the room. And in the lab, we have a few people working in the lab, and essentially we have a lab maybe about half of this size, and plus several smaller labs. And next year, as we have our new building behind us, we'll have 5 labs. 5 would be about twice the size of this room together. Just the offices of some of our staff. And so about the center, I have a few brochures you can pass around, and something about myself also. So, myself, quite a few years ago, I was involved in the development, research and development of a reading machine for the blind. So for development of reading machine, we call it the lexiphone, a reading aid for the blind. So I was working on PDP-8, PDP-12, PDP-11, PDP-9, PDP-15, and so on, and doing recognition as well as speech synthesis. So that was my involvement back in the late 60s. So from there onwards, after joining Concordia University, I started to work on handwriting recognition, and so they are all connected in somehow. And so back in 1973, I was still very active on a machine that can generate voice for the blind people. So from that, the big machine that you saw a moment ago, we developed this little machine. And you see the column of photo cells coming across the document, reading and recognizing the printed material, and saying something through the loudspeaker to the blind person. So that was our development up to that point. Pardon? That was January 31st, 1973. And from there onwards, we worked on handwriting recognition after joining Concordia University in 1972. And after a few years, we thought we would be able to solve all the problems in handwriting recognition, but we couldn't. And in 1990, I started to think about ways of solving the problem. The first, we need people, not just ourselves, our group, and we think that more exchanges and more interaction with other people will help, and also to build up the field of handwriting recognition. So in 1990, I started the international workshop on frontiers in handwriting recognition, and there I invited the most prominent people in the field to come, and we had an excellent meeting and people presenting their work as well as giving us information on what they are doing, what are the principal publications of their work, and they were all recorded in the proceedings. And so I brought a copy here for your group, and that was back in 1990. And of course, this workshop was very helpful, and so next month it will be the 7th or 9th international workshop. And so some of you will be there, and I will be there. Hope to see you there. So it has become the most important workshop in handwriting recognition, I think. And apart from that, we were very active in document analysis and recognition. And so I also organized, started the international conference on document analysis and recognition. And this is I was the conference co-chair for the first conference in France, the second one in Japan, and the third one I was the general chair in Montreal. And so we had a lot of papers in this area. So my idea was that we should gather together and put our brains and exchange our ideas and get some stimulations from each other, and to advance the field and to cooperate as much as we can. So that was the idea. So this conference we had now, the last year we had one in Edinburgh, and some of you went, and that was maybe the 7th or something conference, and so that's what we have been doing. And apart from that, I have also been very active in organizing some conferences, such as the International Conference on Pattern Recognition that took place 2 years ago in Quebec City, and I was very fortunate to have a team from Quebec as well as from Montreal, and we organized this conference and attracted more than 1,000 people. So that was the International Conference on Pattern Recognition. I have just one brochure here. And so we published a lot of papers from our group. I think we had about 12 or 13 papers in that conference, and I have also brought a CD with me, so souvenir. And this conference also occurred months ago in England. That was the following conference. And 2 years from now, we'll have another conference on pattern recognition. And that will take place in Hong Kong. and it will be organized by one of my former students, Dr. Tang. This is a little brochure about a Hong Kong conference in 2006. So we studied a lot about character recognition and how we think why we can recognize characters and what are the distinctive features humans are looking for, and also in what way we can extract the character recognition knowledge from humans who have become such good character recognizers. So if we are able to extract knowledge from humans successfully, then we wouldn't have any problem in recognizing characters by computers. And so we did a lot of psychological studies aimed at finding the most distinctive features in character recognition. Indeed, we studied many different aspects related to character recognition as well as word recognition. So to test that, I will show just part of the characters and see whether you can make out of it. What do you think it is? So that's probably a G, right? Part of a G, part of a P. But other than that...
That's birthday.
Pardon?
Third one's an A.
Yes, maybe.
GRA.
Uh-huh.
And the fourth one is an M, maybe.
Grandma.
Etc. So, so you can tell that by looking at just the lower half, it's not so easy. But if you look at the upper half, maybe you can find more information. So I think you can tell maybe with this little dot you can say that this is a G, R, A, M, O, F, O, O, N, N, etc. And therefore this part tells you that most of the information in Word or even in handwriting is at the upper part of the word. And so if you are able to extract more information from the upper part, you are more than halfway through your recognition. And of course, this is a word, I chose a Dutch word so that it's not so easy for you to get it by context. And so it is gramophoneplaten. So it is a Dutch word, gramophone. So that tells us that in handwriting recognition, there are certain aspects we may have to extract so that we can get better recognition results. And we have to rely on a lot of information, not just the shape alone, not just the spelling alone, but also many aspects related to the different ways of forming the characters and the words. So we can say that for unconstrained handwritten characters such as digits, we are talking about a recognition rate of 98 to 99%, depending on the quality of the data. And there are many methods of doing that, but they still make a lot of mistakes, and mistakes that are not allowed in situations such as financial documents, ID numbers, and so on. So for handwriting, it is very important, especially related to numbers, important that we should try to reduce as much errors as possible. So we try to analyze handwriting and looking at many different aspects related to the words and so on. The level and the rhythm, the pressure, the slant, the leftward, rightward trans, and the forms of connection, baseline, etc. They all contribute to variations and difficulties in certain ways in recognition. So we have to look at all the different aspects, including spacing, size, regularity, speed, tempo, margins, legibility, illegibility, and so on, in order to fully making use of all the information we can from the shape of the characters and the words for a higher recognition rate. We have studied many ways of forming the lower part of a Y, for example. There are many ways of writing it, and there are many ways of forming it. And of course, the people in the tablet group and your group would have already analyzed various aspects that we people write. Yeah.
Our approach is more to get learning to
Yes.
we get much into the details of analyzing your human analysis.
Yes. Yeah, and I think we do put in a lot of time on analyzing the details as well. Yes. And I'm very glad to see that your tablet has taken off, and a lot of them being sold, and I'm wondering whether you have considered recognizing a doctor's handwriting. And from this article, you may understand that a lot of mistakes have been made because of the poor handwriting of the doctors. So the wrong medication were given to patients, and also the wrong things have been administered and so on. So causing an uproar in certain areas, Los Angeles, asking doctors to learn how to write better. But I'm sure your tablet will solve that problem. So in our studies, what we do is that we look at handwriting from many different aspects. One of them is related to handwriting education. We want to find out how school children are taught to write in order to understand how they form their habits of writing. And so we studied more than 30 different handwriting systems in the United States and Canada. And from there, we found what are the forms, what are the sequences, and what are the shapes, and so on that they are being taught. And it is very interesting to know that even after having learned that, after 20, 30 years, the habits still are there. And the way they write and so on, it is very interesting. And if you visit Alberta, not far away from here, you'll find that many people write with a slant compared with other parts of Canada. And that is typical Albertan writing style. So it gave us a bibliography of a few hundred references in this area, and they were recorded back at that time, and I did some studies and look at the handwriting system by Burns, by Zainab Blosser, by others, and some of you have already been using in your school days. So here are some of the results of analyzing more than 30 handwriting systems in North America, and that is the way they teach children how to write. This way, the first stroke, second, and the third, and sometimes they put the horizontal bar a little bit up, and there are many ways of writing the letter B, and there are certain ways of writing C, D, and when we have more strokes, the handwriting system becomes more diverse. And so we have many ways of forming a letter E, for example. And that is how we analyze the different systems in order to understand, first of all, how people started to write. And from there, we look at their writing habits and the ways of forming or writing these letters. And that is what we call the manuscript writing. And of course, there are writing systems, cursive form, teaching children how to write. And here are some of the, one of the popular methods of teaching them. And in penmanship, we are talking about penmanship. We are not talking about recognition. And so you may notice that a lot of ornaments are there. For example, this little curl there doesn't help in recognition, but it helps in style, in the shape. And these little curls there and here, they are a nuisance for recognition, right? But they are there, and because that's the way they are taught. So we have to look at the way children are being taught, and when they put these things, and old ladies are writing, or other people writing, you will see a lot more curves on the characters. We also collected a lot of handwritten samples from students, and so here from 1,500 students, we found that most of them write an A this way, 17.1%. Some of them write with a sharp angle at the top, 16.8%. And letter B, many of them just write this way, 29.1%, and so on. And even though we asked them to write in capital letters, you notice that 5.2% wrote this B as a letter, that as 3.2%, and this 2.3%. So even though they are supposed to write in uppercase, they wrote in lowercase anyway. So we have to consider also the human aspects. We give them rules, we ask them to observe them, but not all of them observe them. And they have their own thinking, their ways of expression, etc. And we have to accommodate that. So that prompted us to look at different ways of writing, how to form characters, how they produce, how they write, and how we recognize, how we perceive and recognize what we write. And so we did some experiments on various ways of writing. And we also asked left-handers, right-handers, so we analyzed their handwriting as well to see if there are any differences. So it's quite interesting. to see, as far as the speed of handwriting is concerned, for the three different styles, print, manuscript, and cursive, we found that right-handers, the writing speed, of course, is higher when we use cursive, when we write cursive, and left-handers, when also has a higher, with a higher speed compared with printing. And another aspect is quite interesting, is about the recognition by the different people. By left-handers and the right-handers, we notice that errors produced from stimuli written by left-handers produced so many errors, and by right-handers produce so many errors, and for left-handers writing, there are more mistakes compared with the right-handers writing. So if you have many writers who are left-handed, so be prepared to accept more mistakes. All right? So it is not because, well, they seem, because of the shapes and the characters, etc., were formed by right-handers, most of them. And as we continue, left-handers had to follow the rules, and because of the ways they write, and because the ways that we form the words, etc., so it is a bit awkward for left-handers, and so they don't write as legibly as right-handers, and as a result, they also don't recognize so well compared with the right-handers.
Have you found the inverse to be true with like some of the Arabic and the right to left type of writing stuff?
We did some recognition of Arabic, but we didn't analyze the left-right aspect.
So this is the error rate of a human ranking another
Yes.
human's handwriting.
That's
so this
right.
is, presumably, the computers can never get as good as humans. This is like the limit of what we can get.
Number.
And that was the three styles of handwriting.
What are those?
Mistakes, and these are not percentages, but they are mistakes, errors. So mistakes out of how much? I think it's mistakes out of 30 times 26. 26 letters. 30 people, or 15 people. Yeah.
So it's a little hard to read from here, but you're saying if I turn these into percent, we're a couple percent.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And that's per letter.
Mhm.
Yeah, are these segmented?
These are isolated letters.
Okay.
Letters.
Actually, then computers may actually be better than that.
Well, we will find out. Yes.
But are you aware of a left-right distinction for computers?
No. I think you can try it, and I think it will be interesting, and I would expect similar results. That is, left-handers writing is poorer compared with right-handers writing. And what is the percentage of handwriting left-handers? I would say in the United States it's between 10 and 16% left-handers. And some of your presidents, well-known, Clinton, Ford, they are left-handers. Right?
And is it increasing with age? That is, they used to discriminate against left-handed writing.
Well, it is odd. It's the minority.
No, but it
Yeah.
used to be that people who were left-handed were forced to write right-handed.
Yes.
And so my guess is that people my parents' age
Yeah.
would have been writing right-handed whether or not they were wanted to. So there would be more of them now.
Yeah. There's a lot more freedom, of course, in North America compared with other countries. Yeah.
It wouldn't be that, but in people my parents' age, there would be almost no left-handed
Yeah,
writing.
they are being discriminated.
Right. Whereas now it's probably 10 or 16 and probably growing. And
Probably growing. Yeah.
But you're saying the rest of the world isn't like that?
Well, the rest of the world, they ask them to change, but I think that gradually they also allow people to use left hand to use the chopsticks and writing, etc.
So is it genetic?
Well, who knows, but there are, a doctor can do a test on a young child and determine this well before they start writing.
Yeah.
The standard test is to hand the child something to pick up and see which hand they use. And I think at age 1 they can determine this.
Yeah. It's a very interesting aspect, and there is certain orientation somehow. So what we did at that time was also trying to look at various models of handwritten alphanumerics. So here is a collection of the different characters that we have assembled, 89 most common styles that we found, and so if we take the writing sequences away, these would be the 2 models for A, 3 models for B, etc. And we have other models for different characters in order to make it more distinct. Yes. So we collected a lot of data. I think at that time we collected more than 100,000. 20 years ago there was a huge amount of data. And so we analyzed and did a lot of experiments on the data. But if we look from a human aspect, trying to recognize the characters, handwritten characters, such as S, 5, D and O, B and 8, G and 6, you will notice that humans make a lot of mistakes out of context. So they make about 9.46% of mistakes when they are given the stimuli of handwritten S, handwritten 5 when they are mixed. They could not tell exactly what they are almost 9.5% of the time. They make quite a lot of mistakes. So context is very important. Yeah. So we did a lot of analysis on how we recognize characters. For example, this character, we want them to write down what they are. So they say, well, 20% may look like 1, and 20% may look like 4, and 20% may look like 7, 20% may look like 9, and 20% just don't know. So a shape like this, you will see that you can get these answers. So what we do is to look at these answers and look at the way people think and try to implement as many feature extraction algorithms as possible into the computer. And of course at CENPARMI, we don't use just one method. We use many different methods. So right from the very beginning, we try to look at ways of recognizing characters. So we look at many, many different ways and try them as much as we can. Of the methods that we tried, we had the following. We looked at statistical methods, we look at syntactic structural methods, we look at neural networks, we look at perceptrons and knowledge-based methods, heuristics, adaptive learning, and we also looked at SVM, support vector machines. We also look at hidden Markov models, etc. And we try to assemble them and pick the strengths and try to weed out the weaknesses and try to recognize the characters in order to achieve accuracy, speed, and flexibility, and so on. So that is the way we started, and that is the way we've been continuing at this point. So it is not surprising that we produced a lot of recognition algorithms. Here we show 7 of the methods that we have investigated, and we try to combine them. And what are the results? Mainly, we can see that if we have 2 experts, we would be in this region of about 1 to 2% error, at a recognition rate of 91 to 95%. And if we want to increase the recognition rate, we have to use more experts. For example, this one, 5 experts, we would be in this region. In this region, we have about 97% correct, and the error is about 2%. So if we use more experts, then we would be in this region. 7 experts would be in this area, and 4 experts would be in this area, and so on. So we tested our algorithms in many different ways, and we combined them in many different ways as well in order to come up with the highest recognition rate and the lowest error rate.
Sorry, I don't understand that.
Yes.
So you have error and
recognition, yes. Accuracy and error, yes.
One at a character level and a word level, or?
They are all character level.
Rejections too.
Oh, okay, those are rejections.
Yes.
No, whatever.
That's the error, and that's the recognition. And that is the number of algorithms we combine. This region would be 2, this region would be 4, and this would be 6, and so on. So it tends to have this shape. Yes.
Why is there a different number of examples for each?
Fine.
Why is there a different number of experiments for each number of experts?
Different experiments in order to find out what would be the best combination.
No, but you have different number of samples.
Yeah.
Like, so if you have 1 expert, you have, I don't know, 15.
Yeah.
But for 7 experts, you have only 1 experiment done.
Well, you can only combine 7 experts one way. Right?
Oh, I see. So there's 7 experts, and you're doing 7 choose 5 experiments.
Yeah.
How do you combine the experts?
Mainly by majority rule. And sometimes we also look at the probabilities as well, and the confidence levels. Yeah.
Because you can train.
Yes. We can also train, do further training, etc. Yeah.
Yeah, so in this case, you could have 7 experts being worse than 6 experts.
Well, here are I think it's easier to look at, maybe. So we have 7, and we have these. And we have expert number 1, 2, 3, up to 7, and we have the combination, the majority vote. the error rate has dropped to 0.16% from an average of maybe 1 or 2.
Which database?
Yeah. That's the database we have on handwritten numerals, mainly the CENPARMI database, not the MNIST. And later on I'll show you results on the MNIST.
How big is this database?
This has 6,000 numerals.
That's for training?
Total.
Very small.
It's small, but not easy.
But 0.16 on
Yeah.
6 hours is very, very small.
Yeah. And when we use Bayesian genetic algorithms, then we get different results and so on. So there's always some trade-off, and so I will elaborate on these with the MNIST data.
Because 0.16 is like 5 examples. That's not statistically significant.
Yeah.
Could be about tough cases are rejected.
Yeah, you have to look at the recognition is 96%.
Yeah.
So that means about 3% are
3%,
rejected.
3 point something rejected. So rejection has been applied. It is important to reject, otherwise it will make more mistakes. Yeah. So now I will focus on what we did on the whole spectrum of handwriting recognition. So we looked at various aspects from pre-processing stage to feature extraction to classification. And in the feature extraction, we did a lot of work related to pre-processing, making use of thinning. So you will see that we have published a lot of papers in the thinning area in order to get rid of as much noise or unimportant information as possible. And that is one of the publications we had with World Scientific a few years ago, that we published a few years ago with a collection of about 20 different thinning algorithms on handwriting recognition or related to image processing. And apart from that, we also did a lot of study related to contour analysis, and also apart from thinning, getting the center lines, we also look at the contours, the tracing, the edges, and so on, in order to collect different sets of features for recognition. So looking at it, we are very interested in finding out how humans recognize a character, and look at the structural aspects, and from there we try to generate the rejection criteria. So we try to find out how humans recognize the characters, and we try to find out why they say 20% a 4, 20% a 9, 20% a 7, etc. So there we put in as much as knowledge as much as possible into our recognition system. And we also relate these features to skeletons of the image so that we can recognize them and extract them from the skeletons. So skeletons has been one of the important features in our recognition systems, because from skeleton we can easily get a number of useful features. For example, we can get the terminal points such as this or that, and we can get intersection points such as this one, and we can get the bend points where they bend, and we get also lines in different orientations more easily. And in your analysis in online recognition, you get them automatically. You get a thin line automatically, so you don't have to do any thinning aspect. And from there we look at different types of features. We have found the intersection points, we found the endpoints, we look at the curves, how they are generated, and different topological features, and S-curves and circles, etc. We extract all such features for recognition. And after that, what we do is to design a recognition system to reduce as many errors as possible. And this is the way that we have designed it. We make use of a stage called a verifier in order to accept or confirm the result given by the recognizer. So we are making use, as you remember, we are not just one method, but many different methods. So we make use of several recognition systems for our recognition of the handwriting. So there we call it the general purpose recognizer, and it is for recognition. And then we have special recognition systems, such as the use of special features, special classification techniques, such as support vector machines, hidden Markov models, and a few others. And then we come to this verifier, basically structural features like humans, and to tell us, to confirm the identity of the character. So in order to do that, we have to have a number of prototypes for the different characters. So for numerals, we have a few models for the number 6. And so we have prototype 1 consists of an upper stroke and a lower circle. And that one, they have little strokes coming out. And then we have a curl model, and we have a fill-up model that is filled up with ink, or they just come back to the same place. So for different numerals, we created different models, and a series of models. We try to look at the incoming pattern and compare with the models we have, and then we look at similarity, and then we say this is this model, but we will look into more details to verify whether indeed we should call this a 6 or not. So we look at various aspects, such as the certain parts and certain portions, and the hooks and the symmetry, and we also look at the thickness of the stroke and so on, in order to establish the identity of the character. Just for an example, here are some of the models we have for the numeral 8. And we have many different ways of writing number 8, and so we have quite a few models. And we also look at the aspect of the waist, and so the waistline. And we look at the different models in order to assess the identity of the character. Yeah.
How did you determine that this was the correct number of models?
Well, we If you remember, we had studied a lot of different handwriting by many people, by 1,500 students, by many other people as well as from the collection of data we have from other databases. There we collected, and statistically we found that these would be representative of maybe 95% of all the different shapes. And so we say that that's good enough.
You did this by inspection?
Yes, by inspection and statistical analysis. And the clustering, yes. So our prototype consists of the following, 8, and what we do is to check whether there is a circle on top of another, and if yes, we look at certain measures and check the upper and lower circles, and these two functions will evaluate the two circles and connected branches, and then update the measure. We measure it, and if not, then we could reject it, and we also check whether the measure is above a certain threshold, and if it is above a certain threshold, we say that this is numeral 8. Otherwise, we'll pass it to another stage and check for other prototypes as well. Yes. We have recently done some work related to Chinese checks, and so in Japan we'll be talking about recognition of Chinese.
Yes. Particular method that
Yeah.
to scale to 20-stroke.
Yes, some of them are quite complicated, and so we have to rely on other methods. And I have a slide to show you that later as well for Chinese characters. So for the prototype number 11 of numeral 8, we look at various aspects and try to look at the waistline and try to find that particular feature. But for some characters it's more difficult, and we have to look at possibilities of confusions, especially 4, 9, etc. So we have to look at them from another aspect. So we have to look at the V type of curve at the top, and whether they have vertical strokes at the bottom, and the positions above mentioned features, whether they are similar or not. And look at the local difference, especially the curvature changes in some parts of the image. So in this case, we are looking at a curvature change in this area to distinguish it from 4. And what we do is try to combine the classifiers and look at the conditional topology and measure the threshold and the similarity among the different models, and then we come up with a ratio defined as the combinations of the different characters, and also look at the confidence value for the different characters. And from there, we check the threshold and we accept or reject. Yes. Yeah. So to combine our classifiers, we have a secondary classifier, we have the global classifier, and then we have the secondary classifier to look at the confidence levels and to do the ranking and to do the recognition. Here are the experiments on the MNIST database, and that is the National Institute of Standardization and Technology, Standards and Technology. And we have the experiment on the MNIST database, and at a rejection level of 3.42%, we got 99.92 reliability rate. It is a recognition rate of 96.5 and a substitution rate of 0.08%. So that is at a rejection level of 3.42%.
Sorry, what is the substitution rate?
The substitution rate will be 0.08%. That's the substitution rate.
Right, but what does it mean?
It means that we misrecognize 8 out of 10,000.
So
Yeah.
substitution rate is really the error.
Yes.
Okay.
So what is your error rate at 0% rejection?
0% rejection.
The reason I ask is that there was a competition for NIST a long time ago.
Yeah.
And everybody had, we all plotted the rejection curve.
Yes.
And you know what? All the rejection curve were parallel.
Yeah.
So the ranking you had for 0% rejection was the same ranking you had
Yeah.
for 3%.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's good to have at least one number we can compare across.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Except for one curve, I don't know if you remember, there was one curve that crossed all the curves.
Yeah. At that time, there were quite a number of companies involved as well in the competition. Yeah. So you asked, and I am giving you 0 rejection rate. We have 99.06% with a substitution of 0.94%. But if we use the verifier and we have a higher rejection rate, at the rejection rate of 9.93%, we get only 0.07% substitution rate. And if we want to suppress it further, it's 0.05%, but then the recognition rate lowers to about 80%. I believe this is very close to a human recognition rate on the database that we studied. Yeah. And we actually did some human experiments on the recognition of MNIST data, and I think this is close.
So we actually have some result on MNIST, and we can also make that plot.
Yes.
I think we start a little higher on the recognition at 0%, but I don't know how, if the two curves really are parallel. We'll see.
Yeah, so very interesting. Yeah. And this is the curve. If we plot it, it will be the performance of the verifier, and when we had higher recognition rate, we have also a higher error rate. This is the error rate, and so the curve is like this. As we go down in recognition, 96 or so, then it is about 0.08%. Yeah. And I believe that's very close to human. Human maybe just a little bit lower, but not much lower. Well, in our experiments, we allow them to reject.
Oh.
Yeah.
And so what is
So it's very similar to what we have.
And what is the rejection rate that you typically
Rejection rate typically, I think, is lower. So some of the misrecognized or rejected images, we have these, and the errors, some of them are like this, and these are typical errors that we have. I think we made about 8 errors. I think that gives us the idea about ways of trying to reduce the error rate is to look at as many different models as possible, as statistically possible, and efficiently as possible. And we also make use of a verifier as the final judge to see whether we will accept or reject the classification result. So apart from that, we also do a lot of studies on, for example, recognition of handwritten checks, the characters written, and the words written on checks, a certain amount, and so on. So I think this is a French check in Montreal. We have checks in basically two languages, English and French. So we have to recognize both English and French. We also try to recognize the amounts written on different types of forms, like payment slips of a bell, in this case for telephones. And we have the checks. What we do is to separate the forms first, and this is for recognition of the amounts on the telephone bill, and this is for recognition of the checks. So the amounts may not necessarily be equal, because they can pay a certain amount, part of it, if required. So we did a lot of recognition on also words, such as month words, and so we have January written in many, January and other month words written in other ways, and we have come up mainly between 80 and 95% for recognition. Well, there are many languages in the world, and so we tried English, we tried French, and so we also tried Arabic. We recognize Arabic checks. And recently we also tried Chinese checks, and we recognize Chinese checks. And in collaboration with A2I2, Adezia, in France, in Paris. There's a collaboration with them on the recognition of Chinese checks. And we do other studies, research for recognition, identification of European and Asian languages in documents. And Dr. Simard asked us about Chinese characters, and so we did some studies on recognition of Chinese characters. Here are Japanese characters, and with some kanjis, with Chinese characters in the alphabet. We are talking about 2,000 in this case. And here are some of the results we have on the ETL 9B, that is Electrotechnical Lab, the Japanese database. And for a training set of 2,400,000 characters, our training time is about 54 hours, and the recognition error is about 1%. So I think this is one of the highest in the area of recognition of Japanese characters.
So this is image-based, handwritten Chinese characters.
Yes.
How many classes were there for the
About 2,000. Yeah.
So these are the 2,000 most common Chinese characters?
Yes. Plus Japanese characters as well. Yeah, kanji, the kanas. katakana and hiragana.
One of them in total.
Yeah, those we had maybe about 40 each, so we had additional 80 symbols.
Yeah, but they account for at least more than 50%.
Yes, yes. I agree with you. They're not easy. And for Chinese characters, we also did some studies on Chinese characters. That is on the Hanwang handwritten Chinese database that we use from Beijing. And using a training set of 2 million characters and testing on 500,000, we get about, I think about 1% error, so 1.5 or so. And here are some of the characters, some samples.
And this is SVM and your input space or the pixels?
The pixels.
How big is the image?
The image, I would say about 60 by 60.
Is that database available?
That database is available at CENPARMI. If you are interested, we can investigate. And of course, humans make use of many different types of features, and looking at not only the features, the shape, but also the linguistic aspect. So, for somebody who is not doing that, can still recognize this, right? So you recognize this word. Why? Definitely that is not an E. It could be A. And yet you are able to invert it and recognize it as sleep. So we still have certain elements in the humans that we would like to extract for recognition. And even though there could be a lot of noisy images, we are still able to recognize them, such as this one. So we are very good in recognition, and because we have been trained, and somehow ourselves were also trained. And over the years, we have accumulated a lot of experience. So imagine that we are seeing a picture of millions of pixels in just 1 second. The number of years we have accumulated lots of images. So even though this one is a very noisy image, I'm sure you'll be able to recognize this. Right? Are you able to recognize this? Somebody with a pie on the face? You're getting there. You think so? So it's quite a nice pie. So in human recognition, that happened in '98. So in human recognition, even though we are not able to see all the details, yet we are able to recognize the pattern. So for characters, for words, and so on, I think we may still have to find more information and try to make use of a lot of information that we still don't have in order to get error-free society. Thank you very much.
We have time for questions?
So I have a question. So I noticed that you're using a lot of support vector machines for your recognition. How do they compare with neural nets, because we mostly use neural nets, and from what I've heard, not that I ran any experiments myself, but the support vector machines are very slow.
Yes, and that's why we developed high-speed SVM, and I think 54 hours for training on 2 million Chinese characters is not bad.
How about the recognition time, though?
The recognition time, I think, is quite fast.
So it's comparable
Yeah.
to the neural network?
Yeah, I would say so.
And also, if you use a multi-stage, you use the confidence to run it, so you have a really fast recognizer that may have very low performance, but if you reject 50%, then you half your time. You have to first recognize as fast.
So what is the patterns do you use for SVM?
For the SVM, we use the RS, what is that one? Yeah. Radio basis function, yeah. Yeah, I remember R and then got stuck.